Holiday shop.
to holiday shopping blue balls.
Holiday shopping blue balls. Yeah.
Take one. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. With you as always, my name is Aaron, and I'm always joined with Dave and Fredo. Thank goodness. How you doing, guys?
Doing all right.
And yeah, what we're in December now. December, I can't believe it. Dave, you are originally from the Midwest, so, as am I. Fredo, you're about as far away from the Midwest
Latin
originally.
America.
Okay, so I guess let's go from two different perspectives then. Do you have a hard time getting into the Christmas spirit with it being it's going to be like 70 some degrees tomorrow, and it's so first of all, I mean, Fredo, you didn't grow up with snow. Dave and I did, and Brittany and I were talking about it. It's like, it's like when it would start to snow in November and you'd get probably first good snow in December, it would really start getting you in that Christmas mood. And I mean, I think since moving here, it's almost like, oh, it's Christmas. I don't know and Fredo, have you ever had issues with, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, and you're like, what? I don't know. So, all right, Dave, are you drinking eggnog?
Holiday spirit.
So that's how you get into the holiday spirit. So one of you or do you have issues getting into the holiday spirit?
Not with my beverage of choice. Yeah, no. It's a little bit I'd say when I was younger. I think it's harder for expats when you move away from it, and then it's like for a while it is a hard adjustment. But I can remember so many Christmases that were sort of moderate to warm. Mostly when I was older. I'm not going to say anything about global warming, but global warming. I think, but yeah, there were a lot of Christmases that were warm anyway. And to borrow your phrase, Aaron, maybe that would take me out of it sometimes. But I don't know. You get older, and it becomes less and less of an important thing. I think.
I will say that the day that I gave away my snowblower was the second happiest day of my life. So, I mean, I have no problem with it being going to be, like I said, 70 to 80 degrees this week. No problem whatsoever. But it does kind of like, I don't know. Are you in Christmas? Fredo, what about you growing up? Because where you grew up wasn't.
Yeah. Well, never snow. I mean, the coldest we got is probably what we're getting right about now. Just maybe a few mornings you get into the low 60s. That's about it. I mean, okay, maybe if you went up in the mountainous areas, you could get colder, but you never get snow. I mean, it's tropical country. But Christmas, it was more a question of the calendar, was less having to do with the weather. So you get to about this point and you start feeling like Christmas. Plus, school year in Nicaragua, when I went there, went from March through December as opposed to August to May. So that meant that we're about to hit the break or the end of year term. So you'd go on Christmas vacation would lean into vacation being out December, January, February. So you won't go back till March. So you'd be looking forward to it big time. It's like imagine Christmas and end of year all in once.
Oh, right on.
And then moving here, yeah, no, I mean, we all still got in our minds the memory of Christmas, was it 89 or 91, when we had like an eighth of an inch of ice. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it snowed. It snowed in New Orleans. It's like, no, we've never gotten snow down here. If we ever get snow in New Orleans, people will think the end of the world is happening.
My sister said, before we moved, well, when she lived down here, she said, yeah, if it ever snowed, said I was just going to get a 6-pack of beer and sit on my porch and watch people try to drive, because she lived on Clearview in Metairie.
Well,
but it's like,
okay, just tell your sister. just as because I was driving the stoplight at Clearview and West Napoleon, right where that Danny and Clyde's is. That was out today. Traffic on Clearview was backed all the way to Vets.
Oh Lord.
It was a nightmare.
But
So my sister that she'll go like, "Oh my god."
with all due respect and love to my New Orleans brethren, y'all freak out when it's raining. I don't even want to be near a road when there's snow. Um,
There's two extremes. It's either they act like there's no slickness at all, and they're still going like 80 miles an hour through residential areas, or they put on like their hazard lights and they're going 10 miles an hour.
yeah.
And it's like, no, we don't have to go that far in either direction.
They seem to think 4x4 means that, they can go at any speed through any surface in any weather. And you got to remind them, well, if the tire and the road are no longer touching, don't matter what you got in that engine, big boy. Sir Isaac Newton's now in command.
So anyway, yeah, it's just it is kind of weird. It's been weird to get into the holiday spirit with like I said, with the weather being the polar opposite of what I grew up with. But that being said, I'm not opposed to it. All right, well let's do a little bit of trivia. By the way, before we get into trivia tonight, what we're going to be doing is going to be kind of sticking into that holiday spirit because we're all getting a belated Christmas present with the Book of Boba Fett. So we're going to do kind of one last, I don't know, therapy session, I suppose, on what's to come. But then basically talking about our hopes and fears for the Book of Boba Fett. We're always talking about leveling our expectations, so I think we need to purge some of this stuff so we can get our expectations leveled. But then we're going to talk about Star Wars holiday gift ideas. So we're just gonna kind of ramble about what gifts go
Merchandising.
over well, merchandising. And if you really want to break the bank or if you don't want to spend a lot, so we'll give you some ideas that way. But on to trivia. And as I'm holding my card out, I'm going to the eye doctor tomorrow for my yearly exam. So, all right. So, Fredo, you're first.
Okay.
What senator confesses that he and his wife, quote, have always talked about adopting a baby girl? Softball.
Very softball. It's Senator Bail Organa from Alderaan.
Oh wow! You just you're that kid on the test that gives all the stuff that the teacher didn't ask for.
That's right. Hey, you gotta be specific because it would have been Bail Antilles from Alderaan.
That's true. That's true. All right. So, all right, Dave. What species are the porcine guards who patrol Jabba's palace carrying crude vibro axes?
They're Gamorreans, right?
Those are Gamorrean guards. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And,
Porcine.
I was like, my eyes went all goofy there. All right, so I'm gonna stick with the same category for me. Who shouts "Chuba" when his meal is interrupted by Jar Jar Binks? Ah, that's a Doug. That Doug would be Sebulba. Yep. So there we go. A little Phantom Menace there. So you guys got
Very dangerous, Doug.
That's right. That's right. So cool. All right. By the way, so before we get into the Book of Boba Fett, I have to tell you, we're a little bit of movie nerd. I was watching The Dark Knight Rises. It was on as I was eating dinner. Britt had open house, so she wasn't here. But you guys realize that The Dark Knight Rises is basically the plot for Police Academy 2?
It hadn't dawned on me, but now
I haven't watched Police Academy 2, so you're going to have to I've watched it, but it's been probably 30 years.
It's
so
when all the gangs take over the gangs take over the city, and the cops are like, the underdogs. Yeah. I'm watching this. I'm just like going, I've ruined this now for you, Fredo, haven't I? It's
yeah, you have. Oh my gosh! Now I got to picture Bobcat Goldthwait as Batman.
Yeah, and Dr. Johnny Fever was the commissioner, or the captain. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's Dark Knight Rises is basically Police Academy 2. So and then Britt shows up at the end of the movie, and the interesting thing, and she's a really good point. They set that up for a great handoff to, you know, um, what's his name? What's first? Something Gordon Levitt.
Yeah, Joseph
Yeah,
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt.
Gordon.
Yeah, yeah,
They set it up for him to be the
yeah,
next, version of that, and left some doors open for some cool storylines, and then
yeah,
we're just gonna reboot it.
yep.
So
Felt like a bit of a missed opportunity.
Well, I mean, it might be something that in another decade or so they might go back and
Well, yeah,
touch
you
upon.
can't rule that stuff out now. We're gonna get
I mean,
Michael Keaton back,
that's
so
true.
and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's not that old, so I mean, if he wants to, hold on, if he wants to come back at some point and play the, because I think they set him up to be Robin or Nightwing.
Yeah.
Oh
mhm.
wait, no, it's not correct that he's 40. Wow. Okay, so he's still young. So if give him another few years, new Batman movie doesn't take off, they could always go, hey, we got a backup Batman on standby.
And as long as
Warren Buzz
long as
does.
one of his lines is not, "I told him not to park on that beach. That's not a parking spot." He was the voice for that dude in the Last Jedi. So yeah. Anyway, all
Yeah,
right.
because he did a couple of movies with Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, I
So, yeah,
just
so they're buddies.
wish
So
he would have picked a different voice. Anyway, let's get off of that one. Um, cool. All right. So, Book of Boba Fett. Let's start off with before we get into our hopes and fears. There's a couple little bits in on the interwebs that is of interest. So let's take the first one. What do we got?
okay, so first thing, last month, Empire did a big magazine spread. They also had a spotlight for Book of Boba Fett on SFX magazine, where they start talking about some of the characters and they're interviewing everybody, and they're doing this kind of big presentation. So first things first, they asked Ming-Na Wen, who's playing Fennec Shan, about what the show's gonna be, and okay, so she goes, in the Book of Boba Fett, a lot of exploration of the dynamics between Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, how they complement one another, and what they get out of that relationship. He's someone she respects, and they have definitely bonded with him, saving her. It allowed her to realize that she might be better off not being solo anymore. She sees her alliance with Boba Fett as a very smart move in the sense that she'll have somebody watching her back. And even though it might be extra baggage, she'll have to align herself with somebody else. The reward for her at the moment is greater. And Boba died, or we thought we did, in the Sarlacc pit. So I think that both of them share those near death experiences in common, and they will both have a vulnerability that they understand. So first things first is she's kind of coming at it from the standpoint of, remember, it was Fennec was left for dead at the end of episode 5 of The Mandalorian season 1, and Boba saved her.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause you right there
And
because that he had to have been keeping an eye on her already. Um, it because and Fredo's taking a picture of us right now. I don't know why, but
they,
he I had to have been keeping an eye on her already because yeah, you just that's a literal needle in a haystack to find this person, left for dead in the middle of Tatooine. Um, so,
well,
and
what's
I don't want to.
interesting,
I won't give away one of my. I won't give away one of my hopes, and I think there's a reason for that. That's kind of hinting to one of my hopes, but
well, and then one of the things I was just going to mention is we know we've seen Fennec's beginning in her career in match, and if she was capable enough to go against toe to toe against Cad Bane back then, clearly she's gained some sort of reputation leading to Boba Fett knowing who she is. So later on in the article, they do point out that there's been an official rebranding of Boba Fett's ship. So
you
instead of
see,
the Slave One,
you've seen a Robot
hmm?
Chicken where Lando says, "Hey, Boba, like the ship. Not a fan of the name though." It's like,
Well,
yeah,
and that's why, and that may be why we have not seen
Right.
um, any merchandise or any promotion of the ship. Like the Racer Crest from Mandalorian was a Lego set, was here, was there. Not seeing that ship anymore because I don't know. But anyway, Slave One is gone. Say hello to Fire Spray. That is the official name for Boba's ship,
That's breaking
and it's
news. I didn't
going
read
to
that
be.
article. That wow, they actually changed the name then.
Yeah, and I meant that's why you haven't seen any toys or any figures of the ship, but I imagine you will see it now that Book of Boba Fett's coming. And I imagine they would okay, they might drop that bit of information quickly on in the into the show.
Fire spray sounds like a '80s hair band. It's like they opened for Loverboy or
Yes.
something. I don't know.
Fire
You're doing this.
spray.
Mhm.
Well, we know what our band name is going
Uh,
to be now, guys. Give it up for
Coming
fire
to the stage.
spray. Oh Lord.
uh, I you know
I want to be I want to okay now I want to go in the I
okay.
want to get in the DeLorean and go back to that meeting when they decided what the new name for Boba Fett ship was going to be, and I want to see the entire whiteboard with all the options and how what were the ones that didn't make the cut. That fire spray was the one that was yeah, I think we'll go with that one.
It just makes me think of like
Is
the
it surprising? Because
Aquanet, the hairspray. You spray that and you light it on fire. Poof! Fire spray.
for
Oh boy.
anybody under the age of 35, go ask your parents and their older siblings and ask them about the dangerous fire hazard that was living through the 1980s and
Oh
early
yeah.
90s
Yeah.
because Aquanet was a danger. They
It could
combined that
also
and smoking. Mhm.
it could be a good name for a monster truck. Fire spray. Um, I think like it
That's
calls
very
some.
fine.
It sounds more like a wet fart. Um,
I'm not going to speculate on what you've been eating.
yeah, well, let's not speculate on what I've been eating. That's probably be a good thing. All right. So Ming Na Wen, and it's also interesting. He almost made it sound like they're also a thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
That was interesting
Well,
the way that was all worded. But I mean,
yeah, she's trying to be selective in her wording, which is standard operating procedure for any Lucasfilm project. But it's interesting that yeah, she's trying to draw a comparison on two loner characters that are now coming together.
the other interesting part of it, if you remember in the like one of the last episodes, um, it was when Boba Fett actually said, "No, we're going to hang with you until we get the kid back," and they cut to Fennec Shand, and she gives this look like, "Oh God," it's just like really. Um, so I wonder if I mean, are we going to get a little bit of a and this might get into the hopes and fears stuff, but could there be? I'm not going to say abusive, but not healthy relationship there.
Could be,
Yeah, I don't know.
could be. I mean, it might be something. Yeah, it might be something where Boba has a certain level of control over Fennec's motives or not motives, but actions by means of hey, you decide to walk away, leave me behind, you don't get X, and X is what keeps you alive, kind of. No, because she
Hmm.
showed. Remember that episode where we meet back on the planet uh where Grogu gets kidnapped? She shows him his little abdomen where she got shot dead by that sniper rifle or sniper, yeah. And shows him that he did something to her to help stabilize her and keep her alive. Now,
Yeah,
usually it comes
Yeah,
with a price.
it can. Yeah, and you wonder if there was, and we're sort of hinting at it a bit of an addiction potential there too. It's like there's something that he's substance potentially that he's giving to her. I don't know. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
lot of possibilities.
so
So,
we'll table these for our speculative conversation here in a little bit because we're starting to get into that
yeah.
dangerous territory. But all right, so
See, yeah. Let me finish from her quotes, and then I'll go into some of the other stuff that the articles kind of pull in from Tamar Morrison. So Ming-Na Wen continues. He goes, it's going to be really interesting to see how their dynamics grow in the Book of Boba Fett. I think that's all I can say. The rest you have to watch. Not that they're the bad guys, but they're not that good either. And she says, we're the anti-hero. I like playing an anti-hero. You get away with more, I think.
This could really end up being kind of a Star Wars Bonnie and Clyde.
Hmm.
You know, I mean,
Which would be awesome.
yeah, I mean, it very well could be. Um, so I guess I mean, so those are kind of the two new fire spray, and actually, it sounds like a
Fire spray.
it sounds like a deodorant that's marketed towards seventh graders, which would probably also cover up wet fart smells. All right, so we are less
What?
we are less than a month
So,
from the Book of Boba Fett. Let's talk about our hopes and fears. You know, it's because this is one of those shows that uh, it, it's I mean it's a delicate thing that they're balancing here, because they could either make Boba Fett, you know, even more awesome than, you know, meet all of our wildest imagination, you know, dreams, everything, or just make him boring as all hell, or just meh. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It's I'm a little bit more have a little bit more trepidation going into this than I did The Mandalorian. I don't know. But I will say I'll start off with a hope,
Okay.
and that I
mhm.
hope that there is an Omega connection, and that she plays into the storyline. I think it makes sense, because why else would you have Fennec Shand be so connected to her in Bad Batch? Um, that just seems like a natural connection there, and I think that would then open up the Boba Fett character and give you more avenues to go down if he's having to interact and deal with his sister. You know, um, so that's one of my hopes. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Would you be down for a live action Omega?
Yeah, very much so. Um, it there's a lot of potential within that. I like her character a great deal. There's an obvious connection between the two. Um, it's it's certainly within the realm of possibility, and so I would welcome that kind of connection. I don't know if we'll get that. I'd probably lay odds against it if you asked me to put money on it.
Why do you think
But
that? Because this is that would
it's
be a
just
very Marvel thing to do. We've talked about that, you know, Star
mm-hmm.
Wars getting into the Marvel business of, you know, story development. It would be a very Marvel thing to do. Um, why do you think that they wouldn't go down that route?
I get a sense from Lucasfilm in general that they don't like painting themselves into a corner. So if they can leave something kind of open ended, they will. And so since that series hasn't completed yet, and I'm, they may have season 2 mapped out, they may have season 3 mapped out. I don't know how far in advance Filoni and company have this thing like mapped, but he may not be decided on Omega's ultimate outcome for that series, or whether she might die, whether any other number of things might occur that would preclude her from participating in this show. So um, I think like that. I always err on the side of them like doing that, and instead of connecting things, they tend to leave things kind of open ended.
Yeah, I think usually, unless there is a specific need to answer a question, they tend not to. But at the same time, there is already an established connection between Omega being a clone, the Bad Batch, Fennec Shand. So there's some, they're tangentially connected in some ways and directly connected to Boba Fett. So not even mentioning it would be weird.
Well, and so not to so again, listening to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, and Dominic Jones made a very good point. Said one of the things that everybody really dug about Boba Fett was that he was so mysterious. said,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have it, and I'm like I said, I'm basically reading verbatim from their podcast. So you guys all need to listen to that podcast. They're great guys, and they put on a good show. But you made a very good point that you can't call something the Book of Boba Fett and then not explore, and leave him a man of mystery. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
that
So
sort of
what's
ties into my big one, which is I want to learn more about him. And specifically his history and where he comes from and where was he between um, Attack of the Clones and um,
Now.
New Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that period of his life, we don't know a lot about that. We don't know how he got out of the Sarlacc pit still. Um, so there's a lot there, and I want to learn more. And so like that would be my hope. My big hope is getting a lot more of that sort of juicy background.
What specifically would you be looking for if you had what I mean what what type of storyline? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, as long as my biggest thing is like we talked with Alex Rawls about Christmas music, right? And covers and how he's looking for excellent craftsmanship or he's looking for something new and weird. And that's like 100% he nailed what I'm looking for in Star Wars, which is, exceptional craftsmanship or something kind of weird. And so that we haven't seen before. So, like, those would be either or, and I'd be happy.
Well, just to kind of tell you off of that, in the same article that Tamora Morrison says, quote, there will definitely be a number of answers, some long-winded, some short and sharp, some colorful. We're filling a lot of gaps, end quote. So they know full well that there's this expectation that fans have that you're going to get to know at least some of the answers, some of the, there's been a lot of questions over this character since 1983, and people want to hear what happened or, some of this stuff, especially after the prequel. So we might get a lot of those answers that you want, or at least some of them, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
okay. So before I let Fredo give a hope, because what you just mentioned actually is one of my fears when you said some long-winded. If we've only got
Mm-hmm.
what 6 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same number as Hawkeye, isn't it? Um,
It is.
I don't want a long walk through Tatooine. You know what I mean? I mean that it's if we only got 6 episodes, then let's get to it. If there are other ways, because you could actually. Okay, so where was Boba Fett between Attack of the Clones and the New Hope? A lot of that could be told in the animated series, The Bad Batch. In the second season, they could actually get into that because they've already mentioned him in that series. But my hope is I don't want. Yeah, I don't want to say the word filler episodes, but I don't. If it's only going to be 6 episodes, then let's not, dilly dally. That's one of my fears, is that we're going to get, like I said, sitting around a campfire and telling old stories or something that doesn't really go anywhere. Fredo, what's your hope? What's a hope of yours for the Book of Boba Fett?
Uh, I think my biggest hope is if we know, given the characters, given the world that we're exploring, given the people, I hope that it almost becomes kind of like the Godfather, of Star Wars. By which I mean that we actually delve into the underworld, delve into the city characters. A lot of the other shows, whether it's Bad Batch or Rebels or even the movies, or even the Mandalorian, they've skimmed along the surface, along the side of, hey, this is the bad characters you run into. Ming Na White, they're at best anti-heroes. They're both characters who are on gray on the morality scale. So you want to be able to see um, them kind of expressing themselves in different manners and different ways. I don't want this to so all of a sudden end up being like, oh, we got to make them a kind of sort of good guy because otherwise people are not going to like it. But it's the kind of thing where I'm like, actually lean into the fact that this is the mafia, this is the mob underworld, that that there's gangs that Boba Fett's going up against because he's getting payback for all the wrongs done to him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Get, go end of Godfather Part One.
a lot of people are speculating that this is going to be the Star Wars Underworld show that never
Not
was. You know, that the test footage leaked online, whatever, like a year or so ago. I mean, could very well be. Could very well be. Um, yeah, I don't know. That would be that. I mean, that would be really cool. Um,
Yeah, because again, and again, particularly the difficulty is normally within the Star Wars gumbo, to put it in no Louisiana terms. Uh, the Jedi, the Force element tends to be kind of like the chicken or the Dewey sausage, and the shady smuggler, bounty hunter, underworld element tends to be more the uh, you know the green onions, to put it that way. It tends to be flavor, tends to be on the side. There's the opportunity to kind of give us more of to make that more the main element in this too, to make it more present, to make it more relevant to the story in a way that even something like the Mandalorian hasn't had never been,
so
because from first episode, the moment Grogu turned up, we're like, hey, Force.
So your hope there about this being the Godfather and getting into that underworld whole idea, that leads into another one of my hopes, is that I hope at least, if at anything, the very last episode, or I hope that it's introduced and they've kept a big secret, and I hope we see Amelia Clark as Kira, since she is running Crimson Dawn. And she stole, we've mentioned it before, in the comic series, spoiler alert, she stole the frozen Han Solo from Boba Fett, so they have a rivalry set up already.
Mhm.
And I hope that we get Kira, and this might be your quote unquote make Solo 2 happen first moment of that, if you get her to, because again, you could have you're going to have competing crime families. Well, that could be one right there. And that could be, they kept Mark Hamill a secret. They kept Grogu a secret. Could very well be that, it's probably a little bit easier to keep Amelia Clark under wraps than Mark Hamill, so I don't know. What would you guys think of that? What do you think the over under is on that one?
Less, probably less likely than more likely. So 30%, something like that.
I could I could see it. I could see where she turns up. Now, what'd be interesting is Kira, at this point would be already like spent like 10, 15 years or thereabouts on. Wait, hold on. How long? Solo takes place how many years before New Hope? Remind me of that, please.
Was about,
Is it like 6 years or is it less than a decade
no,
About
or more than a
10,
I want to
decade?
be like 10 to
8 to
15 or something
10,
like that.
right? Oh. Yeah, it
Okay, eight
was
to
a little
10. So
more than,
yeah,
yeah, it
so
was
she
like
can
8 to
even.
12 maybe.
Okay, I mean, because Han in Solo
Well,
is young, but
let's
he's not
let's
that old,
let's
not
make it
much older than.
easier. Let's make it easier on yourself, Fredo. Return of the Jedi. How old is Han Solo? He's probably
That's
what?
true. That's
Like
true.
what? He's probably like early
Eh,
30s.
30, 32. Yeah,
35.
exactly.
So early
Yeah.
30s.
So
So
yeah,
I
so
mean,
no,
so
so
she's,
because
I mean it. So then we're
definitely
talking
within
about,
acting age.
yeah, we're talking about 7 years after that. Well, and I mean makeup, but so
Yeah, exactly. And she's the right age. I guess that was my point. Is I don't expect her to turn out all of a sudden have the makeup making her look like she's in her late 60s,
no, no,
or
no, no, no.
needing to recast her with like Helen Mirren or something like that. You know, so she totally could appear. It's not something that's without the outside the realm of possibility. It would create an interesting dynamic. We don't know what happened to her criminal organization after Maul passes away. I mean, or put it this way, we don't know what happens to her after the end of Solo. We know that she's involved with Crimson Dawn um, uh,
Well, and
after
there's got to
one
be
of
an
the bounty hunters.
antagonist. There's got to be an antagonist of some sort in the story.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So it's like, otherwise, if it's just him, holding, you know, mafia meetings every week, then it's like, and kind of random side quests here and there. I don't think you gain anything. And again, I've said for a long time, I think Star Wars is trying to get into, like I said, the Marvel way of doing things. And why would they lay that story in a comic book of Kira,
Mhm.
stealing Han Solo from Boba Fett? You could have had Kira running Crimson Dawn and have, that show up, but to link those two together when you got the Book of Boba Fett coming up, I mean, I feel like the guy drawing lines on the whiteboard, but I mean, it's not a stretch. It's not like I'm saying that,
Well,
um, yeah, it's not like I'm making something totally wild up.
no, and to your hope, Aaron, I think one of the things that bringing Kira allows you is to bring that spirit or that idea of Han Solo into the story without bringing Han Solo. Because remember, who put Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit? Han Solo. So the idea that maybe he's got a grudge to bear against the guy who, by accidentally, shot him off into the mouth of a monster, and that Kira might be the reason why he doesn't get to go up against Han Solo, would track and would explain why they don't bump into one another. Because I don't expect. I mean, okay, put it this way: do you think Alden Ehrenreich might turn up here?
Okay, so no,
That's
but
that's a
I
that's
think
a big fear.
you
Anyway,
guys have been dancing around this, and I think like this is the big question, right? It's not for me a
Mm-hmm.
hope or a fear, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's likely that you might see a de-aged Harrison Ford in this, because we saw it already with Luke. And in season one, we got a version of Yoda, that was just like the jaw dropping reveal, and then season two, Luke
Right.
Skywalker, jaw dropping reveal, and so I'm thinking like that's a bit of a pattern at this point, and like
Tarkin and Princess Leia in Rogue One.
who would turn people's crank more than Han Solo in this context, like those two have a history, um, and so
now pair that with getting Amelia Clark, and then all the nerds go nuts.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, you could have. She might be the bridge to or the specter off, and again, because it's as they've said, is that we're dancing around the obvious dynamic that if Boba Fett's going to go on this fun-filled tour of revenge, one of the people he's going to want to go after is Han Solo, General Han Solo, hero of the rebellion, and that he might not be, depending on where the galaxy's at right at this point, the person who stopped Boba Fett might not be Leia or the Republic. It might be Kira.
Well, and here's the deal: is that all of these shows, the way I'm looking at them, again, when I talked about the Bad Batch, that show is not about those five characters. The story is about something
Mhm.
bigger, and they are just you know they're the vessels that we're seeing this story through. A lot of people have
Mhm.
been talking, and Filoni had talked about a Rebels sequel. Well, guess what, folks? The Ahsoka show is going to be your Rebel sequel. That's the way that's shaping up. So why do you have a Book of Boba Fett show if not to tell the story that you set up, or to tie up some loose end somehow that was set up in Solo? And you've got Kira, you've got, like I said, you got Amelia Clark. If you could do a de-aged, Harrison Ford, imagine just a brief, 5 minute, interaction between the two of them, like, I don't know, maybe she's dying, or he's just like, nope, sorry, I got this other chickie over here, so off I go. But to have that, again, why else do you have? I don't think you have the Book of Boba Fett so you can talk about crime families. I mean, it's just, there's got to be some other. We're using it as a vessel to tell some other story. That seems to what they're doing. I don't know.
My biggest thing with this, and it's kind of the hope slash fear thing, if we're circling back to that, would be the connection to the Mandalorian series itself. Um, I'd like there to be a very clear um, sort of reconnection at the end of this back to the Mandalorian, because I think what I want as a viewer is I want to get hype again for the Mandalorian. I want to circle back to that character and the characters and Din's story, and so the best way to do that is to get us, into teaser mode by the end of this series. Um, and and so there's a way probably that you could do that um, that flows out of the story and makes sense. I also feel like it'd be easy to make that feel really forced and bad. Um, I have a lot of trepidation about that particular idea, but I think it's important. I think like that's what they need to do at some point, and is like, all right, you've this is again to your point about the Marvel stuff, right? The idea is we've told you this story, but by the end of it, we've teased you with the next story.
Yeah, we've held your hand into the through the next door. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Mhm.
so like I think that's I'd lay odds that we're going to get that. I'm just hoping that that it's done well, that it's done smartly, and that it fits both characters' stories. I'd love to see the two of them team up again. Um, I think there's a lot of cool interplay that you can get from that. I liked watching them sort of bounce off of each other and figure out that they each had a lot in common. Um, and I think like there's a certain
So,
kinship
mhm.
there.
Well, no, and then actually to piggyback off that, that's one of my hopes for this ship for the Book of Boba Fett. I want to see more Mandalorians. I want to
Mm-hmm.
see more because we got that little bit in the bar from the Night Owls from Bo-Katan and her gal on how they view Boba Fett. But I want to see how other Mandalorians, even say some of those of the covert like Din that Din was a part of, how they relate or how they react to Boba Fett. Because they're right, he's got one of the most recognizable, famous faces in all the galaxy. So how do they react to him, and how do they what do they think of? Do they think of him just like no better than a machine, like a droid, or do they think of him like an actual true Mandalorian? Um, and how and I do wonder and I do hope that we do get to hear, maybe not in the foreground, maybe just in the background, mentions of what's happening with Din Djarin. I think it'd be a cool little Easter egg to throw to people like, hey, more and more Mandalorians are returning here. We're seeing pockets of them turning up there, or maybe if he encounters a few more Mandalorians, says we've received a call. We're being summoned back to Mandalore to answer the call of the one who holds the dark saber. Again, that just teasing us out, showing us, hey, that because even though we're in this world, the other side that we saw from the Mandalorian is not on hold.
So I've got two fears. One's kind of a tongue in cheek one. In the trailers, you see him talking to an Ithorian, the Hammerhead,
Mm-hmm.
and this is very much similar to when everybody first saw Finn and everybody assumed it was Lando's son because of course all the black people have to be related to each other in Star Wars. People are saying because they see this, it's like that's Doc Ondar from Galaxy's Edge. And there's a part of me that it's kind of like that's a little bit of a fear. Even though as excited as I am to go to Galaxy's Edge, I kind of dread the day that Batu or some connection to that land shows up in a Disney show, and I know it's going to happen, and maybe this is the way to do it. But I don't know. What do you guys think the chances are? Because he dealt in, kind of black market antiquities and stuff like that. Could it be Doc Ondar?
Like Batu is like way far away from Tatooine,
Well,
I think.
that's where he is
Right?
now. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying
Um,
it's could that character be? And what would
oh
you think?
yeah.
What would you think if it was?
I guess I wouldn't rule it out, but I also feel like it would feel a little forced. Like to kind of like agree with you on that. I I'm not sure that that would be the time or the place for that, but um, I wouldn't rule it out as a thing either because a couple of the novels have been set there. So it has already entered into the canon, um, and we've seen it there. And so I think we will see more with Batu, and we'll probably see it on screen at some point. I think that's a good prediction, but I'm not overly worried about this here.
So
Yeah,
my other fear, and then I'll let Fredo talk about both of them. But my other fear is that getting to the article where Tamara Morrison was saying that they're going to be, explaining a lot of things. I hope this doesn't become like in Solo, where it's like, and here's how Boba Fett got his dent in his helmet, and this is how Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit, and this is why Boba Fett's jetpack was all crapped out when it's like I said, here's how Han got his gun. Here's how Han got the Millennium Falcon. Here's how Han met Chewie. It was like all those things had to be dialed in. It was a fun movie, but it's like they had a checklist. And so I hope that this show doesn't too, like your very first point, Dave, give us something original. Let's not just have a checklist of, tell us all the things that we've been asking about Boba Fett.
Mhm. When Star Wars is at its best, it's answering the questions that you have by creating new ones. And I've always felt that like when I come away from a movie or even a television show or whatever, and I'm like, wow, I got a million questions about this, and I'm curious about this and X and Y and Z, and like, where is all this going to go? And then I watch the next chapter, and then I have a million new questions, and I got like I don't know 5 to 10 of my questions answered from the first time around, but now I've got a million more. Um, and so like I feel like Star
right.
Wars does that better than pretty much any other property out there. Like they have a way of just sort of inspiring your mind into these flights of fancy and all these questions and wonderment. And um, I don't want them to lose that at the expense of the big reveal or the tease for the next chapter, like the Marvel thing. It's like, no, we don't need all that. What I need is for you to show me some stuff that just really sort of like makes me go back into the sandbox with the Kenner figures, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know how this all plays out. I really want to know. And um, what's this guy's backstory? Like, what's he all about? Where's this going to go? And they never answer everything. Um, but if they can inspire that level of interest, then they're doing something right. And to circle back to the Mandalorians, that's one of the things from The Mandalorian, the series, that they nailed. And I was worried about going into it, which was we're gonna show you Mandalorians. We're gonna show you more about this culture that everybody's interested in, and ooh, palace intrigue. And yet, so I was worried. Like, do we need more of this? Am I really into it? Um, but like when they were on screen, people other than Din, I was, just like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Um, and maybe some of it was pseudo intellectual. Oh, this is the way and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. It tapped into that. It tapped into that sense of wonder, and I love that. And I'd love to see that here.
So just to kind of go back right quickly on regarding your fear regarding Batu, I think it's almost guaranteed that we'll see Batu in some way, shape, or form in one of these upcoming shows. Maybe not Book of Boba Fett, but definitely one of them. They're Disney is promoting Galaxy's Edge like crazy. We're gonna get Aaron's favorite Star Wars prison coming
They
soon,
want
so
everybody to go to their
they need to
park.
get
Yeah.
right. They want you to associate the parks that they've built with the Star Wars universe, and the easiest way to do that is to put stuff like Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities in the show, to put a character who is Doc Ondar. That allows you to bridge the gap even further between the TV shows and the streaming shows and the parks and the events that you see that you can go partake live. Again, it's synergy that is even more than Marvel there's attempt. So because Marvel's never gonna have a park that's like, yeah, we're in the Avengers tower in New York City, and it's a giant tower in New York City. But you can build a fictional planet in Disney World and Disneyland and have kids and parents come visit it and then go, and here it is on The Mandalorian. So I think we're almost guaranteed to see it at some point. Regarding the second fear, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, you have to have an element of deftness, and here's one thing. I mean, what Tamora Morrison does, he's relying on Dave Filoni a lot for how this fits and feels. You're right. It shouldn't just be checklist of, well, this is how, yes, we're more likely going to get the how did Boba Fett survive the Sarlacc pit. That one has to be in there, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where he first shot his jetpack rocket, and this is where he first got the firebrand. You know, or this is where he decided to rename it or whatever. Doesn't need to be everything, but and just because that takes away some of the mystique. You're right. Part of the element that's made the character great since the first moment anybody saw him is the air of mystery that he engenders. And if that's taken away because you start giving everything, but as Dave said, the smart thing that Star Wars does is it answers one question and gives you two. So I'm trusting that they will get some of that this show.
So I'm going to leave the floor to you two. Any closing hopes or fears before we move on to holiday shopping goodies?
I guess I'm worried about the point of the story. And I think, like we've talked about, that we need the character development. We need to learn more about him, and I guess some of this is going to be criminal underworld stuff, and we know that that's the backdrop. That's our setting. Um, but I'm curious to sort of learn what the point of the story ultimately is. Um, and um, so that's my biggest fear about it. Is like, what if we get to the end of 6 episodes and we're like, well, why did I watch it? Was I
Mm-hmm.
entertained? Maybe. Um, but did it do anything that was interesting to me? And so, like, that's my biggest fear. It's like, we maybe we're I think we're going to get some character development. I think we're going to get a better understanding of the Star Wars underworld. Um, but is that it? And I hope that's not just it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my other big fear that I do have is that it doesn't become just the Mandalorian 2.5. And that is something that TV shows tend to, particularly when they share a universe, can be quite guilty of. They share a look, they share a feel because they're sharing similar sets and props and actors and writers and the whole nine. So it can feel quite similar. That's one of the if that's one of the drawbacks that I think hampers some of the Marvel stuff is that it can have a sort of sameness from project to project if you're not careful. And I don't necessarily want that to be the case with Star Wars. Like one of the beautiful things that you know that the movies had is that they all, for the most part, looked certainly way. That's why they rarely went back to the same planets. That's why they had different stories. And even though you had the same characters, you changed their looks, you changed their demeanors, that kind of thing. I don't want this to just be, oh well, you get a Mandalorian season 3 next year, but this is the in between. And even though you're not getting the Mandalorian, you're getting a Mandalorian. So this is the one you originally wanted. So here you go. Like I actually want it to be something that's relevant to the character, relevant to the overall story that Filoni and Favreau are trying to tell, the relevant overall to Star Wars. I don't want it to just be disposable where, in 2 years' time, we're like, oh yeah, remember Book of Boba Fett? Yeah, I remember that. I actually want it to mean something.
Isn't it funny? We've been burned too many times, I think, because Dave Filoni and John Favreau have not let us down in 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. But here we all are, still kind
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, you know, clenching our sphincters, waiting for, bad things to happen. You know what I mean? Like fire spray. Uh, but it's
Fire spray.
isn't it fun? It's funny. We've obviously been burned in some way, shape, or another that we still don't trust them, and they haven't let us down in those 2 seasons so far. Um, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Well, let's talk about Christmas gifts, holiday gifts, um, and like I said, this is just kind of a loose discussion about what kind of Star Wars gifts maybe we like to receive, what we like to give, what are some options for people if they're looking, what do they buy, you know, kids of all ages, including those of us who are in our 40s and close to 50, um, and I'm going to start off by just saying I think one of the if you want this when we started this conversation in Twitter, this is where my brain first went, is that I think if you want your kid to grow up to be a big Star Wars geek like the three of us and to know a lot about Star Wars, I think some of the best books that you can get them are the visual dictionaries.
Yes.
I think those books, obviously, I mean, they're obviously visual. That's right there, but there's so many like minute pieces of trivia of like, did you ever, I never knew that there was a rocket on Boba Fett's knee, but that's in a, one of the visual dictionaries. Um, and so they take the time, like Pablo Hidalgo in the story, they take the time to come up with the backstories of all these things. And so I think those would be a great Christmas gift for, like I said, you, especially if you got, um, you know, young kids who are digging Star Wars and you want them to know more. I don't know.
Cosign. Nate's got one of those,
Hell, I've got a
and
couple of them. I love them.
yeah, no, he loves his. Um, it's not exclusive to Star Wars. Whatever your kid's into, there might be an encyclopedia out there that's similar. I know they got them for Marvel and DC and everything else, um, and they're just wonderful because you think about it from the perspective when we were kids, and like you get the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? And it was like the big thing, and it's like, it seems a little like school to me, right? Um, but like this pop culture stuff is a lot more fun for kids. It's more mythical and exciting and imagination sparking. So it's um, don't be scared off because you see the word encyclopedia or something. It's like no or visual dictionary. It's like no, they'll probably be into it. They'll probably really like it a lot.
And and it doesn't break the bank either.
No.
So
Yeah, one of the book collections that ended up getting was the vehicle visual companion books, where they actually, they're these big gatefold books, not big in terms of like volume, but they're bigger than your coffee table book. But you go open up inside and they break down like every ship and every vehicle, and it's just so pretty, and you just get to watch and take a look at all the engineering. And for somebody who any kid or any person's got mind, gears in their mind turning and got to see how everything sort of works. Yeah, it can be quite good. Yeah. And yeah, I'll co-sign any books. I mean, you can't see it right now, but I showed you guys earlier. I got one of my brothers got me the art Odyssey of Star Wars, which is the retelling of the original trilogy in Homeric poem form, which I'm looking forward to reading during the holidays. But yeah, and anything that sparks the imagination is always a good thing, whether it's a book.
and I'm
I
gonna
would also go,
as a
Mhm.
teacher, I'm gonna jump in on that one because I have many of the retelling of the original trilogy books in Shakespeare format. I think I actually just
Mhm.
have the original trilogy, but anyway, they tell it in the style of Shakespeare. And so now imagine if
Right.
you've got a kid who maybe is going, school sucks and this is stupid. I don't want to read Shakespeare. But if you get him Shakespeare Star Wars, then
Mhm.
you're kind of sucking him in a little bit, the Star Wars Homer, that might be obviously for um, uh, maybe not for your average 10-year-old, but it's just, but I mean it's a way to get them to sneak up on them, I suppose, a little bit, um, to appreciate some of these other styles that they think is stupid because it's from school. So
We've been
Hmm.
talking here about books that are that are a little more visual in nature, because like the Fredo showed us like this book, the Homer book, with it's gorgeous and illustrations and things, and it's just like, oh wow, that's cool. Um, there are a lot of novels or Star Wars where it's just, it's a dust jacket and then it's just words, and like a lot of those you can get on Kindle, and a lot of them you can get for very very inexpensively. So if you're on a budget and you got somebody in your life who's like into Star Wars, there are a lot of really good books that you can get digitally. And like if you're looking for specific suggestions, we did a podcast episode like a year ago where we named our favorite Star Wars books. You can go check that out. I can link that in this episode. Um, there's a lot out there. I mean, a lot out there, legends and current. So like, there's a story pretty much for everybody.
Yeah, and absolutely. And actually, I was gonna laugh because when I did stop by a bookstore this week, and I saw one of those big, the visual dictionary, the big ones that actually the author worked with George Lucas. That's like $200, $250, and they were on there, and you can try to pick it up, but it's massive. So be careful if you
I
try to
mean,
buy that one. If money's no object, you can go crazy.
yeah, there are some collections.
Um,
One of the things I saw last year, I think, was it was a whole LP set, for I
mhm,
think the original trilogy, that looked really cool. One of the things I was going to say, it's kind of a neat gift. I've gotten into more. I first of all, I love my Star Wars mashup T-shirts. So like T
mhm,
Public, T Fury, things like that. You can find like, you know, really pretty cool. Like one of my favorite shirts ever is my Spy versus Spy with lightsabers. Like I said, you can get these Star Wars mashups, but so I dig those. Again, very very inexpensive, great T-shirts. So you might find if you've got a loved one who likes two opposing Star Wars and something else, you probably will find a shirt that will mash those two together. But another thing was there's a website, 13th Floor, and this is
mhm,
where my brother-in-law got me a couple of these last year, and they've made these they've taken World War II photographs and put like TIE
mhm.
fighters and X-wings and AT-ATs in them,
Hmm.
and it's looks it I mean, it's a photograph, but so I've got them framed and on my back porch and stuff like that. It's just those type of things are kind of neat. Those are, like I said, neat collectibles to have. That isn't necessarily a toy, something that acts, a decoration for the house, whatnot. So yeah, check out the 13th Floor. There's some pretty cool stuff in there.
Um, yeah. Speaking of clothing, I'll would be remiss and not shout out Her Universe, which is Ashley Eckstein's line
Hmm.
website where they design clothing for all genders, all body types. Trying to spread the love to of Star Wars and geek culture to everybody. So if you find that some stores are not necessarily um, going, providing you with the fit that you need, I think she does a good job of managing that. I was also going to say, regarding reading, if for some reason you have a young person who maybe they're not quite ready for nothing, might primarily words, or you're somebody who loves comic books, Marvel Universe, their app, right now they're doing a sale where you can get like a year subscription for, I believe it's $60. So if you're somebody like you can read not just all the Star Wars comic books right now, whether it's Darth Vader or Captain Aftra, but you can also read all the Marvel comic books. Which, hey, you want to extend your homework reading to include everything that's influenced the next phase of Marvel. You can get all that.
And to go back to your T-shirt point, I'd say that there's so many makers of material
Mhm.
Yep.
that people can find. And I it can be as simple as you just like wandering through Etsy for a while. But there's just
That's true.
there's so many creative people out there that are doing really fun stuff. And I think like one of the things that I've become a lot more conscious of during the pandemic is because it's had a major impact, a more of an impact on the little guy rather than the big guy, typically. Um,
Hmm.
and so, do I want all of my money to go to Disney? Not necessarily. Is there somebody down the street from me that is an artist that I could help support? Those are the kinds of things that I like doing too.
Well, yeah, and to that point here in town, I mean, if Flirty Girl has some, maybe a couple Star Wars influenced New Orleans shirts, as does I think Dirty Coast, maybe. So you
Hmm.
can check some of our local, and I'm not talking about the Bourbon Street or the French Quarter, you know, shops. They
They got to make a living too, though.
I
Too,
got bourbon faced on Street, or whatever. Sorry, you're gonna have to McClunky that one out. But there's there's some local places here as well. I do want to say, because I'm a big Star Wars toy collector, obviously. If you go to like Target or Walmart or something, you ain't gonna find, you ain't gonna, it's gonna be the Spaceballs thing. We ain't found, yeah. Um,
Hmm.
because the toy aisles are just tough. But if you go to like Hasbro Pulse, um, you can find a lot of cool stuff. If you also go, one of my favorite places used to be thinkgeek.com, but
Hmm.
GameStop actually took that over, and they have an extensive amount of Star Wars stuff, not just toys, but like some home items and games and like Funko Pops, and I'm seeing sweatshirts, and so there's all sorts of things. Like I said, there's the Tauntaun sleeping bag that my brother got me one year. Um, but yeah, so you can. There's all sorts of things, like I said, on the GameStop website as well. Um, so that would be, if
No,
you're.
I will say that speaking of Target, if you do go to Target, you probably can find a few of the Star Wars Legos
Hmm.
sets, and those are fun. If you're looking for something to do with a young family member, that's not just you know, veg out in front of the TV. That could be a fun activity. I mean, of course, they could be as big or as small as your wallet and your amount of time that you want to devote to it can be. But they have some, you can find pretty good number of sets. I want to say, I mean, like right now, last week had mailed my nephew the Lego Mandalorian calendar, so he's been building every piece every day. But you can get some of the nicer, bigger sets if you want to. And I know we did a show that, didn't we, Dave?
Yeah, yeah, we did. We did, in fact. You can circle back if you want to find it with our Lego episode where we talked about collecting Legos and how much of it there is. Um, don't get overwhelmed by that. If you're just dipping your toe in
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, like you said, you can go to someplace like Target and probably get a good sense of some of the more recent pieces that are out there. And you don't even have to get into Lego because we know Lego's expensive typically. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can find a sale on Lego, but even if you can't, there are puzzles, there are models, there are other activities that you can engage in um, that again, like you said, are more active. So you're not just vegging out. It's like, well, I want to do something with my kid or with my nephew or my niece or whomever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like, okay, well,
But
there are options.
by the way, looking at Lego's website, I did find they have quote unquote Boba Fett Starship. That's the name of the set that's got both Boba and Din Djarin. They don't call it the old name, and they're not quite ready for the new name yet.
I don't think anybody's
By the
quite
way,
ready
if
for
talking
the
about
new name yet.
Yeah, no, no, that's coming after the show. But no, one of the sets I actually do like that Lego makes rather well sold the helmets.
Oh yeah.
I know you've seen those. Yeah, where you got like now they have the Darth Vader helmet, but Stormtrooper, the TIE pilot, both the Boba Fett one, which uh, they could be quite fun to put together, and then hey, just put on display because that's what they're there for.
I'm going to, however, I'm going to
Mhm.
step in and say
Mhm.
if you are thinking about, now, if you're thinking about getting a Star Wars gift for your favorite Star Wars fan, kind of try to figure out what types of things they're interested in. Because
Hmm.
Mhm.
I've maybe said it before, and I'm so appreciative that my students, they would get me about anything. If they found something Star Wars, it'd be like, oh, Mr. Swoboda would love this because of Star Wars. And then I ended up with a whole crud ton of like, Burger King Star Wars toys, type of thing. Um, some of us get kind of particular about what we want to collect. And so, um, suggest you to just kind of figure out, what they're kind of into, because they may not want the visual dictionary, or they may not want the coffee mug because they don't drink coffee. That's what I'm trying to say. That not all things Star Wars is awesome. So
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Or yeah, no, as you say, you have to be cognizant of what the person likes. One of the advantages of Star Wars is they make just about everything that you could possibly think of with a Star Wars logo on it. So if they're not necessarily somebody who's into toys, well, there's other things you can get. If they're not necessarily somebody who likes to wear the T-shirt, again, there's other things you can get. Uh, just be cognizant of what it is that your loved one or person of interest that you're trying to purchase this for is into, and then kind of go from there. So some people would appreciate a Lego set. Some people would rather you give them a lightsaber,
I was just gonna
and that's a
say that.
whole nother topic.
Well, yeah, I was gonna get touch on that briefly because one of the things Aaron asked me up front was just like, well, what's popular with your kids? Um, so like think about that, and um, lightsabers, like big time. And I'm not talking about the expensive ones that you get and you put in the wall and you have it, in a glass case and everything. I'm talking about the cheap, rinky-dink ones. Um, they're all over the place. Um, they're on Amazon and Walmart and Target and all your major outlets, and they're all they're diverse now. I'd say
Mhm.
5 to 10 years ago, it was kind of tricky to find a lightsaber for your kid that met the kid's requirements. I want one that'll light up. Okay. I want one that's blue. Oh, okay. I want one that'll make sounds. Okay. And then you go looking and you can't necessarily find all of that. It's a lot easier now. I think Disney is pushing out a lot of those kinds of products with kids in mind. And at least as of a year ago, this stuff was all over the place. Um, I think one of our kids got a purple lightsaber, another kid got a red one, um, and again, they make all the sounds and they swing them at each other and break furniture and everything else. It's wonderful. Um, they're overjoyed with stuff like that. Um, the parents less so, but well, it's not always about the parents, is it? Um, so that's a big one. And then I would say too, uh, Baby Yoda, Grogu, whatever you want to call him, still really popular. I mean, really, really popular with the younger crowd. Um, you find something with his face plastered on it, and you're probably doing really, really well.
um, so because Dave's alarm went off a little bit ago, maybe put a bow on this present talking here. If you need any help, if you're looking for a certain type of gift for your loved one, give us a shout on Twitter. Hit us up. We'll try to find some resources for you, give you some ideas. Like I said, I guess maybe I'm speaking for all three of us, but too bad, But yeah, um, but yeah, no, it's always a good Christmas. Always has Star Wars in it. So, um,
Mm.
However, I'm still trying to get myself to buy an ugly Star Wars Christmas sweater. I may have to do that. Target had one, but I'd only wear it like
I
once a
need
year.
one for a party, so yes.
I wear it in Nebraska when I'm there, but not here. So anyway, um, so with I guess we'll maybe like I said put a bow on this. Check us out, like I said, on Twitter. Hit us up about anything you like about Star Wars. We'd love to talk to you. And tell your friends about this podcast if you're digging it. And do all the liking and subscribing and leaving good comments and stuff like that. Maybe a New Year's resolution for this podcast is to figure out a way to become more interactive with y'all. Find some ways to get you involved in and get to know you a little bit better. So I guess you got that to look forward to. But I guess until then, notice we didn't talk anything about Saints because I think the more we talk about Saints, the more they lose. So we're just gonna say we will say who dat.
Who that?
Who dat?
And you guys all have a great week.
McConkey.